Sea Devil Nation, your premier podcast for Sea Devil athletics. Hosted by Trent Brinkley.
I know a lot about Howie Dickerman, but I actually do.
With Zach Harris.
Do you have any comment on when you were on SportsCenter's top 10 for your number one play to Brandon Peel?
And Nick Denning.
Cape Fear Community College defeated Johnson Community College on the road 114-69.
Let's go to the studio and join the team.
All right, Trent, so this weekend, or actually, no, I wouldn't say this weekend, but I guess earlier this week, we saw our girls' women's team. You know, they played in the national championship for the first time in school history. Unfortunately lost both games, but it was still, I think, a great experience and obviously historic moment for a program. You got to watch both. Kind of talk about what did you see out there? I mean, we can start with the Butler game. They lost 3-0, but what did you like about that game when you watched it?
Well, with us, Depa, I know, had a lot of talent. We had a lot of talent coming into this game with Sierra Rayner, one of the big freshman players that was the second leading scorer going into this game, going into the national tournament. Alyssa Costenis was the team's leading scorer. You knew you had production from your forwards. You knew you had a strong defense. But the biggest worry I had going into this game was Celine Jacoby Barham got hurt in that District L championship game against Hartford Community College. And for me, we were talking in the press box about it. Celine was pretty much the captain of the back line. If you saw any of the games this year, Celine was all over the defensive line, preserving that back three, really strong. And with her out for the season with that injury, it really hurt Coach Depa and what his defense had to do. And for me, Butler, a strong team that really can score the ball extremely well with Colleen Howland, who had 29 goals going into this game. You knew the defense had to step up, and the defense really struggled at first because they really couldn't find a way to stop Butler from scoring an early goal, and they did. They scored in the 5th minute of the game.
Yeah, that was, I feel like when we talk about the women's soccer team, we talk about their attack and how good they were throughout the season, but I don't think, we do credit the defense, but oftentimes defense, and especially goalkeeping, doesn't get the credit it probably deserves. And this is necessarily true just of Cape Fear, but a lot of teams, because they only kind of get talked about when they're really doing, when they do something wrong, right? When they make mistakes, things like that. But I think our defense really, helped probably win a lot more games than people realize. I think you look at the score lines and you see 5-0 wins, 6-0 wins. You think, oh wow, they just took it to them offensively. But defense plays a lot into that. That was losing her was big. But they kind of they gave up that early goal, but then they kind of dug in there for a lot for much of the rest of the game, and I think they were kind of looking for that chance to maybe catch them out in the counter. Right? Is that kind of what was the game plan?
Yeah, after they allowed that early goal, they did start to press offensively. I did notice, we've noticed it all season long. Depo, when they play a strong team, they tend to relax in the first half and allow the defense to figure out what the offense of the opposing team is going to bring. But in this game, when you're down in a national tournament game and it's pool play and you got to get 3 points in an opening game, you got to come out,
right,
attack. And Cape Fear did have some later scoring chances in the first half, even from close range. Costenis had a chance for point-blank range. But give Butler credit. They really shut down the offense. But we do have to, you did bring it up about the defense. After allowing that 5th minute goal, they didn't allow another goal for another 69 minutes. So they had 69 minutes to get an equalizer and get some momentum. And going back to what you said about defense, sometimes defense, was overlooked when we talk about games. So if a team like Cape Fear shuts out an opponent, which they did a lot this year, you just think, wow, the offense is really good. But the biggest key for me this season, and I watched it, was how the freshman goalkeepers would develop.
Yeah.
With Elizabeth Etheridge and Kennedy Green, both freshmen, true freshmen for that matter, had to come in and play immediately. And if you didn't have them, where would this team be? I probably would say they would not be in the national tournament if they didn't have these two goalers.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Goalkeeping, especially at this level, is it's important to have someone you can rely on back there. And I think that, like you said, they have two goalkeepers that are reliable. So they lost 3-0 to Butler. They went on to play Monroe in the second game. Monroe was the 7th seed. One thing we should point out with Butler before we move on is Butler was, I think, they were ranked number 2 in one national poll, ranked number 1 in another national poll. So this is arguably the best team, if not the second best team in the country. And I think, that was obviously a big test for us. And I think, like you said, we didn't allow a second goal for 69 minutes. Things that showed we did, sustain a lot of that pressure, and things just kind of didn't go our way there towards the end. Monroe, again, kind of the same story though, right? We gave up an early goal. This time it was an own goal. That certainly seemed to set us back. What did you after we gave up that early goal? What did you feel kind of happened with the flow of the game?
I really think the momentum, obviously, you can take a lot of positives out of a 3-0 defeat against a team like Butler because of what I said. You didn't allow a second goal for 69 minutes. You shut out probably the best team you faced all year for 69 minutes after trailing 1-0. That's huge.
Yeah.
And taking a 3-0 loss, yes, that's 3 goals is a lot in soccer, but I take that as a win, even though it won't show it on the scoreboard or on the schedule. A 3-0 defeat against the top team in the country, I would assume 99% of teams would probably take that defeat going into this game.
Yeah.
Because a school like Monroe, they're 7th, overall seed. But when I was researching this team for the articles on GoSeeDevils.com, they only played 1 conference game.
Wow.
They played 1 conference game to get into this tournament. They had to play ASA New York, and that was it.
Interesting, yeah.
Cape Fear had to play 12 conference games, so you think the advantage is with us because we've played more of a higher competition of other teams around the country. But give Monroe credit, They came out and you allow an early own goal. I was watching that game, and give Briley Easton credit. She was trying to clear the ball out of the box, but at that moment when it was crossed in, the foot just, accidentally put it in.
Right.
And I saw, though the spirits look low on Briley after that moment, give Cape Fear credit. They did not go out early.
Yeah. And, they ultimately, would lose 6-2. Janessa Ennis got 2 goals there, I think, in the second half, and which is, I think something that you can that's one takeaway from this. This wasn't, obviously things didn't go the way that they would have hoped. It would have been nice to maybe get some kind of results, but at the same time, I think you'd probably agree with me here, and I mean, Depa stressed this a lot. Once everything was over, this kind of is laying the foundation, right? I mean, this is a program clearly on the rise, and a lot of even though they're losing some key pieces with sophomores, they have a lot of returning very good freshmen coming back next year.
Absolutely, and you've already brought it up with Janessa. Janessa scoring those 2 goals. For me, watching this tournament, I just wanted them to score. I didn't care, how many times they did score, but as long as you get 1 in the national tournament, because that's a big weight off your shoulder. Once you get 1 on the board, you can compete at the highest level. Making it to the national tournament is like the highest accomplishment you can make in any level of sport. Yeah. And for us to get there and to show that Janessa, a true freshman, can come in and score 2 goals, look for her to be a leader coming next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Anything else you want to mention with this, or should we move on to men's basketball?
Well, going, really quick about the national tournament, we already brought it up with women's soccer, and we'll get into it with basketball. For Cape Fear to make it to the national tournament for the first time in women's soccer history is huge.
Yeah.
Because now, if you're a recruit looking at, Cape Fear and seeing what Cape Fear has to bring, you've seen them during the regular season, you're a local product from North Carolina, you can come down and see them play at Legion Stadium, a great home venue. Mm-hmm. But now you can say, I can be shown on live stream TV, courtesy of NJCAA, and make it to a national tournament. It's kind of important. And women's basketball, give them credit. Last year they made it to the national tournament and made a big run. I think Cape Fear Athletics is where they want to be, and, they're on their rise.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Sea Devil fans, this is Coach Mantlo from your nationally ranked men's basketball team. We're expecting another great season of basketball here in Sea Devil Nation, and we need you. Visit www.goseedevils.com for all your up-to-date info regarding men's basketball. See you in the Swartz.
Okay, so we'll move on to men's basketball now. The men competed in the Cape Fear Classic this weekend, which was hosted here in Wilmington on campus. They played 2 games over the weekend, first against Lenoir Community College on Friday, and then against Georgia Highlands College on Saturday. And Georgia Highlands was the number 2 ranked team in the nation coming into this weekend. Cape Fear was number 18. Kind of a very exciting weekend, right? I mean, like Lenoir, so Cape Fear got a pretty comfortable win against Lenoir, won 100-56. I think, let's see, Alonzo Tyson was the leading scorer in that game with 17 points, 14 rebounds. He had 11 offensive rebounds. Like, think about that. Like, 14 rebounds and 11 of them are offensive. That's impressive. And And then off the bench, Jarek Haynes had 17 points as well. I think a number of players scored in double figures, so a lot of scoring going on, from throughout the roster. We looked very good in this game, and I mean Lenore was, obviously the score probably doesn't reflect it, but Lenore had some players, had some pieces. This was, I think, a pretty good win. What was something you noticed or felt we did well in this game?
For me, it's senior sophomore leadership from Alonzo Tyson.
Yeah.
Tyson at 6'9", 195 is a stretch 4, and for him to get another double here at K-Fear is special.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And when you get production out of that from your paint, especially from Alonzo Tyson and other players, things are going to open up for you. And if you have a strong point guard like Jock Brown is, and with Trey Bryant, the transfer from UNC Asheville, and they can get points in the paint and distribute to points in the paint, you're going to open up opportunities for your three-point shooters and Jarek Haynes and an Austin Davis and a Trevor Willis. And so for me, seeing this team chemistry just through the first 3 games has really grown. And you know that if they can get a lot of points in the paint, this team's going to be tough to beat, because when opponents have to focus on the Sea Devils in the paint, you're going to forget they have a lot of good three-point shooters.
Yeah, no, and points in the paint was huge in this game. 62 points in the paint against Lenore. That's really, really good. Their bench also outscored Lenore's 49-10, and we out-rebounded them. 43-21, so doubling that as well. Lots of positives in this game, and I think you're right about that. That scoring in the post is huge for this team. I mean, with Alonzo, being the force that he is down there, getting him the ball, getting him touches, giving him good opportunities to score is huge. Getting other players as well, getting the likes of Devarte Watson, who's also a very, very physical, very strong player. Devarte didn't score a lot in this game, only 4 points, but he did manage 10 rebounds, 2 blocks as well. But it's not just post scoring, right? I mean, it's getting to the rim, and I think that, someone like you mentioned, Trey Bryant, I mean, he's very good at attacking the rim. We have a couple other players. Jock Brown's good at attacking the rim as well. So I think that's important, because they didn't shoot that well from three-point line in this game, only 25%, I think. But at the very least, getting to the rim is going to help open up. Defenses will start to collapse. That should open up some shooters, because we do have some pretty good shooters on this team. The next game, Georgia Highlands, a little bit different. This is, for me personally, I've watched Cape Fear now for a couple of years. I've yet to actually see them go up against another ranked or top 25 ranked opponent. So I was really looking forward to this, just to kind of see what was sort of the difference. And I don't know how you felt, but I felt that there was a staggering, the level of play between both teams was at. I mean, I wouldn't say that necessarily the bar was raised, but there was an intensity about that game that you could see from the very beginning. These two teams wanted to beat each other. They wanted to prove, hey, despite we're both one of the top teams in the nation here. We want to prove ourselves. It started all right for Cape Fear. We to kind of just recap briefly, we ended up losing 118-101. But we had the very early lead. I think at one point we were leading 13-6. One thing that I saw we were doing well was hitting shots from the 3-point line. But things kind of changed there when we stopped hitting shots. What were your feelings about how this game went?
Well, for me, you already brought it up. These two teams really wanted to prove themselves. They both were ranked. Georgia Highlands being the number 2 team, we were being number 18 at the time.
Right.
And for this game, it was kind of a statement game for both teams. And from the moment that tip-off happened, I don't think you saw an ounce of intensity. If you can measure intensity by ounces, if you could.
Yeah. Right.
Drop at all.
Yeah.
For 40 minutes, that felt like we were playing. I know it's going to be, for some that when they hear this, is going to be interesting, but it felt like a March Madness game. And for your background, being a former manager at UNC Wilmington,
yeah,
you know what it's like to play in big games like that. It felt really intense, and for being a part of that and just doing what we do for all that we do, the stats and recaps and all that, you could feel the intensity come to you as you're working, because you know what the game meant to the team.
Yeah. No, and I never, unfortunately never got to experience a March Madness type of event, but I can tell that, anytime UNCW played Mason or played rival in the conference, there was a different mentality. The players wanted to win that. So, despite what had been going on during the season, there was, the feeling was different. To kind of give you some sort of box scores here, so we did get production from numerous players. Jarek Haynes finished with 21 points. He made three 3-pointers in that game. Jock Brown finished with 20. Austin Davis had 18 points off the bench. And he was kind of important because there was some foul trouble early on there, so he was kind of asked to come in there, guard some of their bigger players. I think things got a little bit away from them, especially when the shots stopped falling. We relied on that a lot in the early portion of the game, which was fine when we were making them. But I think, and I heard Coach Mantler say this, as the shots stopped falling, as Georgia Highland started to come back a little bit, attack the hoop. We kind of abandoned that a little bit. And as we talked about it with Lenore, excuse me. That's kind of the key. The other parts of our game will open up if we can successfully sort of get to the rim, score at the rim, whether it's by driving or in the post. But one thing I do want to mention, and this was something that Coach Mantlo talked about in the post game, is for us to be successful, for us to compete and to have a chance to beat a Georgia Highlands, we have to matching intensity is one thing, but we have to take care of the ball, and when Georgia Highlands makes a run or attempts to make a run or whatnot, we have to be able to match that with good, solid play of our own. And I think we kind of got a little bit away from that as the score started to pile on. So that I think that was one thing that we struggled with. What do you think? Anything that you felt differently, or what did you see?
The thing for me that stood out was how we could handle their pressure.
Right.
Going to some of the practices leading up to the Cape Fear Classic, they really emphasized you're going to have to watch how Georgia Highlands presses. They're going to press for 40 minutes. And when we look at the box score from the first half, we did have 12 turnovers that gave Georgia Highlands their 54 to 42 lead at halftime. And when you commit 12 first half turnovers, it's going to result in a swing. The yin and the yang. You have a lot of turnovers, you're going to be trailing at a certain point of the game. And for us, you got to limit the turnovers.
Right, absolutely. We'll finally move on to the final game, the most recent game, actually. So Wednesday night, Cape Fear took on Wake Tech Community College, our, first conference game of the year. Is that correct? Or are we?
They're Division II, Region 10, so technically it is.
Technically it is, okay.
But they're not Division I, Region 10.
Okay.
But it still is a good game.
Yeah. So Cape Fear won 123-77. That's a lot of points. 123 points. Pretty balanced scoring in this. Jock Brown led with 19 points. Trey Bryan had 17. All five starters actually scored in double figures, and four players off the bench scored in double figures as well. I highlighted Trey Bryant's play in this game, particularly in the first half. The team was looking to get Alonzo Tyson the ball a lot, as we talked about, getting the offense in the post, things like that. But he got in early foul trouble. So scoring kind of had to come from somewhere. And Bryant stepped up and made it knock down a number of threes in the first half. I think in the first 10 minutes of the game, he had 11 points. And that was big, I think, because Wake Tech was kind of hanging around. This wasn't like, the score, even though we ended up winning by over 50, it was a close game for the first half of the first half. And so I think his production there was key. What did you think? What did you see?
I do agree. Trey Bryant, is playing the shooting guard position for this team so far this year, since you have Jock Brown at the one. And Jock, if you ever come out to a game or have seen a game, he's a great distributor of the ball.
Yeah.
For a point guard, you play with your eyes, in my opinion. From what I've seen out of Jock, he plays with his eyes. He finds the open teammate. And you're right about Trey. He did have 11 first half points. And when the team starts to make their 3-pointers, and the bench starts to get into it, a lot of special things can happen. And if you see it with Coach Marcus Faison, the assistant coach, and Coach Mark Lane emphasizes as well, how you play on the bench. Even though that may sound weird, is a great expression, because having great energy on the bench while your team that's playing on the floor plays well, it's going to result in well. And for me, the biggest thing that has stood out from this season going into this game was the freshman of Austin Davis.
Yeah.
Austin is somebody that works harder than anybody that I have seen. And if you watch anything on my Instagram, I have videos of Austin is at the gym 4 hours before every game, shooting probably 400 shots when nobody's there. And Trey and Austin were joking around playing horse before the game, and for people that have great chemistry already, Austin's the freshman and Trey's the sophomore transfer, it speaks volumes to how well this team can gel. And if they can stay like this going into the weekend, which we'll preview in a bit, I think this team's going to be really tough, in future conference games.
Yeah, and Davis had 12 points and 11 rebounds in that game. Knocked down a couple of three-pointers. Xavier actually shot very well from the three-point line in this. 16 of 29, 55%. So a lot of three-pointers were going down. A few of those came there at the end, right? You talked about bench energy and playing from the bench. Coach Mantlo kind of put in some of the deeper parts of the bench, in terms of Parrish Tinsley and Michael Taylor, guys that don't get a whole lot of minutes or haven't got a whole lot of minutes so far this season, but both of them actually had played very well in those short span of time. Parrish ended with 10 points and 8 rebounds in just 7 minutes. Michael had 11 points and made 3 three-pointers. And what I really liked watching when those guys were making shots and playing well, I mean, like you said, on the bench, you saw a lot of energy, you saw a lot of encouragement. I mean, they were happy to see their teammates scoring and playing well. So that's good. I mean, it shows that there is a sense of community, a sense of togetherness, and that can obviously make a big impact as the season goes on. So with those games, Cape Fear is now. I'll take this. What is our overall record now? We are at. Is it 3-1 or are we 4-1?
We're 3-1.
3-1. Okay, I wanted to make sure. So we're
trying to get ahead of ourselves going into tonight's game.
That's right. So we'll. So Cape Fear is 3-1 heading into tonight's game.
That's right, Nick. Tonight the C-Level men's basketball team travels to Petersburg, Virginia to take on Virginia Preps. We wish the men's team all the best because they're going to be competing against Virginia Preps at 7 p.m. tonight against Virginia Preps. And then tomorrow in day 2 of the Richard Blaine Classic, they're going to play number 14th ranked Richard Blaine. You can follow GoSeaDevils.com to see our exclusive game previews for these games as well as recaps, courtesy of Nick Denning and myself for these games. So we wish them all the best in their road trip in Virginia. When we get back from the break, we'll discuss the women's basketball team and see how they've been performing this season. But first, a word from C-Devil women's basketball head coach Lori Drake.
C-Devil fans, this is Coach Drake from the nationally ranked women's basketball team. We are excited for another successful season in the 910. Follow our women's basketball team on Instagram at Cape Fear Women's BB and on Facebook at Cape Fear Women's Basketball. Come support our Sea Devils and join the Blue Crew.
All right, so finally we'll move on to women's basketball who have also played 3 games over the weekend and this week. We'll start with their tournament in Georgia. They played in the South Georgia Technical College tournament. A couple of tough losses for them. First, they lost to South Georgia Tech by a score of 58-42. Taquana Bland led the Sea Devils with 14 points in that game and 6 rebounds. Tough game. If you kind of look at the scores here, they had trouble stopping South Georgia on defensively. Had trouble scoring themselves. Kind of put themselves in an early hole. They managed to play a little bit better offensively in the second half, but not enough to obviously make a comeback. After that, the very next day, they played Wallace State Community College, lost by a score of 70-40. Again, sort of a slow start for them. They only scored 19 points in the first half. Actually managed to outscore Wallace State in the third quarter, 15-14. But again, deficit had kind of mounted up at that point, making it difficult for them to complete a comeback. In that game, Taquana Bland also the leading scorer once again with 12 points and 8 steals. Interesting enough, 8 steals. That's a lot. But despite those 2 losses, they did manage to rebound ultimately. This was earlier this week, defeating Fayetteville Tech Community College Wednesday night, 89-65. Fayetteville Tech is a conference opponent, so that's a good first conference win for them. Taylor Folks led the team with 21 points. Desiree Green and Jessica Dillard each scored 14 points apiece. Which I think, Trent, you'll agree, this is, that's a nice way to bounce back, because that tournament was obviously did not go the way they wanted, but especially to get a conference win, after suffering 2 losses.
Absolutely. Getting a win against a first-year program. When you play a first-year program in junior college ranks, you really have no idea what you're going to expect, because it could be really good, or it could be, what is the opposite of that.
Right.
But for a team like Fayetteville Tech, I did my scouting on them for the preview. They were a really good team.
Yeah.
They have beaten some good teams. They've beaten Johnson Community College, who the men have beaten another first-year program really soundly. They've really outscored their opponents. And for us to go to Fayetteville after 2 tough losses and beat a team like Fayetteville Tech, the Trojans, they've got a strong head coach. I believe he's won 300 or 200 career wins in junior college. So he's done well in his career. But it stresses the importance of what we bring up with the men's team of points in the paint and having good post play.
Yeah.
Opens up what we've said before, 3-pointers, and allow your wings to play well. And when Taylor Folks gets 21 points in the paint, the big 6'2" center, that really opens up Desiree Green, an athletic post player who had 14, and then you get your wing and Jaleesa Dillard who had 14.
Right.
So that's big. And for me, going back to that tournament in Georgia, we didn't shoot well.
Yeah.
And only making 6 threes in 2 games is not a recipe for success. And getting this big win before they go on the road now and play Bryan Strand College of Virginia tomorrow, it's big. You get that big conference win. You had 2 losses in the tournament. You get a big conference win before you go on the road again. I think if we can have solid post play, as I said it before, and I'll say it again, post play opens opportunities for 3-point shooting.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, so the girls, with these 3 games, the girls team is now sitting at 2-2 overall, 1-0 in conference. As you said, they'll play Bryant and Stratton Community College, or Bryant and Stratton College, I should say, tomorrow, Saturday, November 19th at 1 p.m. Anything else you want to add? Anything else about anything?
We're good.
I think that covers our recap of Cape Fear Sports for the past 2 weeks. Hope you enjoyed.